Welcome, everybody. As you're logging in, welcome to New Beginnings, Empowering Women Through Divorce. We have a great program for you tonight. We'll give it a couple of minutes to let everybody log in, and we'll get started. I think we had everybody that was in the waiting room is in. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to New Beginnings, Empowering Women Through Divorce. We are a relatively new group, started back May of last year, and we've had several different webinars and events since then. And tonight we have a special guest, which I will introduce Susan momentarily, but I wanted to give everybody else on the call, the rest of our professionals, a moment to introduce themselves. Robin. Oh, you're on mute, Robin.
Thanks, Renee. Hi, everyone. My name is Robin Young. I'm president of North Star Financial Planning. We are a fiduciary wealth management firm helping women take control of their financial future, often when women are experiencing major life transitions like divorce. So we help these women kind of get divorced legally, kind of create a financial plan for their future, and ensure that their resources are allocated to secure their financial future. So, we're here as a resource tonight. Please feel free to ask questions to any of us about any of the topics as you go. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Laura.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Laura Gamache. I am a real estate agent licensed in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Really specialize handling a lot of situations where it comes down to your largest asset for many divorced couples, which is your home. So I work really closely, really kind of in early stages of just not only coming up with a value so you can have that information passed along to your attorney, but just it can be really a lot of really emotional kind of situation as well. So it's really kind of just helping them keep kind of focused on what the end result is that's best for each individual. So here for any and all questions, and I'm just glad everyone's here. Thanks so much.
Laura. Kate.
Evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am a collaborative divorce attorney and mediator in Nashua, New Hampshire, and my focus really is helping families stay out of court. Nobody really says, oh, I love being in court, myself included. So anything can do to help families, women stay out of court, work on settlements together, whether that's post-divorce or the divorce process itself. I am happy to help. I have a team of really supportive people who have the same mission I do, is to help people kind of come up with agreements that will be long lasting for them and their children. So I'm really excited about this topic tonight because I get asked a lot about dating during the divorce process, after the divorce. And so I know Susan's got a lot of really great tips in store for us tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate. And I'm Renee Guidaboni. I am a residential mortgage lender. I am also a divorce mortgage planner. I'm a certified divorce lending professional, so I do work in the divorce world every day, helping my clients as they work their way through this divorce process and how the mortgage is involved with that. So welcome, and I am happy to introduce our speaker tonight, Susan Trotter. She is a PhD and a relationship coach who is passionate about helping people feel confident and empowered in their lives. She has expertise in dating, relationships, and divorce, with a special interest in the areas of mindset and communication. So tonight, our topic, dating after divorce, strategies for success. So I'm going to turn it over to Susan, and just so everybody knows, The chat is disabled for you, but there is a Q&A at the bottom of your screen. So if you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. And with that, Susan, take it away.
Great. Great. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, and to this group for inviting me to join you tonight. I'm really happy to be here. I love talking about this topic and looking forward to sharing all kinds of information that's going to help you in terms of dating. Just a little bit of background about me. I started my career as a clinical psychologist, and I practiced as a therapist for over 20 years before shifting to coaching a little over a decade ago. I work exclusively as a relationship coach now, but having the clinical background is actually very beneficial in the work I do with my clients. As Renee said, I specialize in helping people who are in relationships and want to actually improve communication and connection. I also help people who are thinking about or going through divorce to make a decision that's best for them and their family. And if it is divorce, helping them navigate that process both practically and emotionally. And then additionally, and the reason we're here tonight, I also have expertise in helping people who are single and dating learn how to navigate the dating world as well. Part of what helped me develop this specialty actually is, I have this background in therapy and in coaching, but I'm also divorced, and I was at some point out in the dating world, and I was having mostly positive experiences, and I knew that that was not the case for most people. And so I really took a step back to reflect on my experience, to do a lot of training and research, and developed an approach to help my clients have a better experience, learn how to feel more empowered in the process, learn how to set themselves up for success in dating and relationships, and how to navigate the dating world, both online and in person. And that's what my intention is for this evening, for you to feel all of those things, empowered and better understand how to be successful as you begin dating or are already dating and want to have a better experience. I want to start with just some general ideas about dating and relationships. Many of us grew up with this idea that part of our task in life is to find our soulmate, our person, that one person out of all the billions of people on this planet that we are supposed to be with. I actually believe that there's more than one person out there for each one of us, and that our task instead is to find those people who are good quality people, and good quality across the board, and a potentially good fit for us, compatible. I think that when you go into dating looking for your soulmate or the one, it puts a lot of pressure on the process that can actually sabotage the experience that you have. So I really challenge you in a way to go into this process thinking about there being more than one person for each of you, and letting go of the idea that you're looking for that one person only. If you end up feeling like who you are in a relationship with is your soulmate, if it feels like that, then that's fantastic. That's a bonus. But if you go into it looking for it, it actually, as I said, can put a lot of pressure on the process. It also is really helpful to be open to possibility. We all have ideas about what our type is, what we want. People may have deal breakers. All of that is fine. And being flexible in your thinking and being open to possibility is another way to set yourself up for more success. There are a few important points, and I think particularly for people who are dating after divorce, that I want to mention. The first is this idea that what we put out into the world is what we get back. And so if we're feeling good and confident about ourselves, if we're feeling positive about the possibility of dating and developing a new relationship, we're much more likely to attract people who also feel good about themselves and are positive and are going to make you feel good as well. Of course, the alternative is true. also. If you're not in a good place, if you're feeling insecure, if you're feeling maybe still grieving and feeling angry or bitter about your divorce and pessimistic about relationships, then you're probably going to connect more with people who are in a similar place and are less likely to make you feel good. So this doesn't mean that you need to kind of, do all your work before you can put yourself out there. It's just a reminder to kind of take your temperature, check in with where you are in terms of self-confidence, in terms of how you're thinking about dating and relationships and the whole process, because it really does make a difference in terms of how you're thinking about all of it. And it's a significant factor, again, in terms of setting yourself up for success. The second point is that history tends to repeat itself when we don't work through things. And it's certainly true in life in general. We often see history repeat itself in all kinds of ways. And it's also true when it comes to relationships. It's part of why I think actually the divorce rate goes up for second, third, and fourth marriages, because people keep repeating patterns without even realizing it. I have a friend who was married and divorced twice, had children from both marriages. It wasn't until he was going through his second divorce that he realized that he had essentially married the same woman twice. And they were two different women, but he had picked two different women with whom he had a similar dynamic. They had similar personalities and the dynamic was similar, and it wasn't one that actually served him very well. And so that was his aha moment of realizing that he needs to take a step back and look at, what was going on for him that would draw him to this type of person that didn't serve him well. So I encourage people, especially those coming out of long-term marriages, to take some time after the relationship ends. And I will add, like after the divorce is final. Sometimes, oftentimes marriages have been struggling for a long time before anybody separates or files for divorce. People can feel really disconnected and feel like the marriage was over long before it actually is. And until your divorce is final and you start to kind of get into your life as a post-divorce person, it's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different process. It will feel different than it did before, and you can't fully know that until you're there. But I do think that there is value when a relationship ends to take some time to reconnect with who you are. Who are you outside of this relationship, outside of if you have children, outside of being a parent, and also to kind of take stock of what you want and need now. Chances are what you want and need in a future relationship is going to be somewhat different from what you wanted and needed in your marriage or in prior relationships. And the other thing I encourage people to give thought to is the dynamic that was in your marriage. What worked and what didn't, and also what was your part in the dynamic. None of us is responsible for anybody else's behavior. And in any dynamic, we all play some part. It might be a quiet part, it might be a loud part, or obvious or not obvious. But we do all contribute to the dynamics that we're in all different parts of our lives. And again, there's a lot of value in just taking that time to understand yourself better, to reconnect with yourself, and to learn from the relationship so that you can make different choices going forward and hopefully break any patterns that weren't working well for you. Again, these are factors that can set you up for more success. The third point is that as much as we'd like to think that we can change other people or control other people in a certain way, I'm sorry to tell you, we don't actually have that ability. What you do have, though, is the power to choose how you want to respond to whatever is presented to you. And certainly in divorce and in dating, there are lots of opportunities that are presented to people in which you get to choose how you're going to respond. And that's actually where your power is. It's not in trying to get somebody to communicate in a different way or to get them to like you or to follow up and respond to a message, whatever it might be. You don't have control over that, but you do have control over how you respond, and the choices that you make are where your power is. So I think those things are really important. I referenced a little bit ago the idea that what we put out into the world is what we get back. And that touches on mindset, which is something I talk about in all of the webinars I teach and in all the work I do with my clients. Mindset is about how we think, and how we think affects how we feel. It affects what we do, and it affects outcomes. So indirectly, how we think about things can lead to the results that we get. Now think about that when it comes to dating, how you think about yourself, about dating, about relationships, about your past, about all of it can indirectly lead to the results that you get. It means that your thinking is really, really important. And so again, I just encourage you to check where your thinking is, check your mindset every once in a while. And it may fluctuate. I mean, sometimes I have clients who are, starting out feeling really positive and so forth. And then there might be a lull in their dating experience and they start to feel more negative. And I encourage when people are feeling more negative in terms of their thinking about it all, to actually take a break, maybe for a few days, maybe for a week, but just to pause it, because if you are in a negative frame of mind, it will impact the experience that you have. It'll affect how you're viewing people, who you're connecting with, how you're communicating, and so forth. So it's actually better to take a little bit of a break if you're not feeling as positive for whatever period of time that might be. The thing about mindset is that we can change it. We can actually change how we think. I think of mindset as being like a habitual way of thinking, just like we have behavioral habits. We might have like a sleep routine or an exercise routine or a morning routine, and we know how to change those kinds of behaviors. We might not always do it, but we do know how to change it. And just like that, we can also change how we think about things. And so if your tendency is to be more negative or more rigid in your thinking, there are actually exercises and strategies that you can use to shift your mindset. It's not a one and done thing. It's really working on changing how you think and doing that over and over and over again. And it's through the repetition that you actually start to change how you think, and it becomes more solidified. So if you were somebody who tended to be more negative in the past, over time, being more positive actually becomes your default setting, so to speak, when it comes to mindset. And again, how you think about things really does matter. In line with that is language. I think a lot about the power of words. I think that the words that we use about ourselves and about other people can make a huge difference. They really do matter. And I'll give you an example. When after I'd finalized my divorce, I was moving back. I'm in Massachusetts. I was moving back to Massachusetts after being away for a long time. And I was going to be starting over both personally and professionally. And I remember thinking to myself that I have a choice. I can either say, oh gosh, I have to start over, or I can say, I get to start over. And the difference in that one word between have to and get to completely changed how I felt, what I did, and the results that I got. One word changed everything that followed. That's how powerful words can be. Now, it doesn't mean that starting over wasn't overwhelming and daunting, because it was. And it was also kind of cool and exciting. Not everybody gets to start over midlife, which is where I was at the time. So I just actually snuck in another example of how words matter. I very intentionally said that it was overwhelming and it was cool and exciting. And I intentionally used the word "and" because most people might have said it was overwhelming, but it was cool and exciting. And the challenge with using a word "but" in that kind of sentence is that it diminishes or even negates what comes before it, and it keeps you from kind of feeling all of it. Those feelings weren't mutually exclusive. It wasn't overwhelming or exciting. It was both things at the same time. And what helps you to get to a better place is allowing yourself to experience all of the different thoughts and feelings and not minimizing or negating or denying any of them. So the yes and is another strategy to help you actually shift your thinking, shift your mindset. Along with, paying attention to language and working on that, just in terms of feeling good about yourself, feeling positive, I encourage, of course, self-care, paying attention to the people you surround yourself with. Community is really important, and you want to make sure that you have people around you who are positive and are going to lift you up and help you to move forward. And, if people are struggling, seeking out professional help from a therapist and or coach is a good thing, so that you can figure out, even kind of dive in and figure out even more what you need to do to move forward. All of these things, again, are factors, tools and strategies that will help set you up for success, whether you're online dating or just out and about in the world. And we're going to talk about that, all of that more specifically in a moment. However you are planning to date or are dating, all of the things that I'm talking about are critical because they're kind of the foundation from which you are going to date. And again, all of these things make a difference and they will impact the experience that you have. Sometimes people come to me because they've been really struggling with dating, and they have these beliefs that there are no good people out there, or all the online dating sites are awful. There's all these kind of blanket statements that I hear, and I will tell you that there are lots of good people. There are lots of good people on dating sites. There are lots of ways to meet people in your everyday life. It's just a matter of, again, making sure that you're setting yourself up for success, and understanding how to approach it all, how to navigate it. All right, a few other things that are going to help you have more success in this. Kind of going along with what I've talked about, confidence is key. It's probably one of the most important things that you can bring to the dating world. It's one of the most attractive qualities, actually. So confidence is key. It's also really important, alongside that, to know your value, like what you bring to the table, and being able to communicate that to somebody. And that might show up in different ways. You might have a conversation with somebody about, what you bring to the table, kind of more directly. You might also communicate your value by the way in which you set boundaries. If somebody, I don't know, is behaving, let's say, disrespectfully in a message or in person, you may set a boundary and not continue connecting with that person, or end the date early, or whatever the case might be. And by setting that boundary, you are communicating your value. You're saying that I deserve better than this. So there are lots of ways that one might communicate their value. Speaking of values, I encourage people to give thought also to what their core values are in life, because shared values are foundational in a good, healthy relationship. And so it's something that you want to be able to communicate to people about, and you want to be looking for when you are connecting with new people as well. One of the other things I talk a lot about is the importance of creating a life that others might want to be a part of. So what that means is getting out in the world and creating a full and joyful life for yourself, being okay on your own. When I was dating, I was really clear with myself that I would rather be alone than be with the wrong person. I had a good life. I have a good life. It's full. I'm very comfortable on my own. And so if I was going to invite somebody into my life, then I wanted them, my word was, to be spectacular, and they needed to enhance my life. And when you create that full and joyful life for yourself, and you then date from that place, it allows you to be more intentional and more selective about who you connect with and who you might invite in. And in doing that, then you are, by being more selective, you're then not just looking to invite people in to fill voids. And I think when people are just inviting people in to fill voids, you can often end up feeling disappointed because you may be less selective, you may compromise on things that are important to you. If you're just lonely and alone and you just want anybody there, then obviously you're gonna be less picky about who is there. So it becomes really important to create that for yourself. And again, post-divorce, you're starting over in a lot of ways and figuring out what you want your life to look like. And as I said, it can be overwhelming and it can be exciting. And it's important to give yourself some time to do all of that. And create that life, because it will help you to have more success with it. And I will also add actually more fun with it. That's part of my mission in doing this work is also to help people learn how to have more fun in dating, because gosh, dating should be fun, right? So when you're in a good place and you understand how to date, it actually allows you to have more of that fun too. So let's see where I want to go with this. Before I jump into how to meet people, in your everyday life, and before I jump into a little more of the weeds in regard to online dating, I want to introduce this idea that when you are dating, everything that people present to you is information. Everything. Whether if it's online, the pictures they choose, what they say or don't say about themselves, how they communicate, how people show up in the world, how they show up on a date, like everything they say, everything they do is information for you or data. And part of your task really in dating is to, be engaged, like be present and be engaged, and keep a little part of you as an observer or a researcher who is collecting all that data that people are presenting to you and using it to assess whether or not they're a good quality person and whether or not they're a potentially good fit for you. Those are the two factors initially that you're assessing, quality and fit. And you do that through all that information, as I said, that people are presenting to you. And also thinking of yourself as a bit of an observer is a way to also give you a tiny bit of emotional distance so you don't get too far ahead of yourself in your own head in this process, which happens a lot and can actually also sabotage things. So it really does force you to just pay attention to what's going on in the here and now, and not think too far down the road. So again, everything is information. You want to be selective. You want to be intentional about who you're connecting with. At the same time, being open, as I said, to possibility, being flexible where you can is also important. So what I want you to do is be selective when it comes to quality, when it comes to compatibility, the things, the values piece, shared values. Those are the things that are really important. Communication, of course. Where I'm going to challenge you to be flexible might be on some of the things that are on your checklist, and we know everybody has them. But some of them may not be as important as you think, like if somebody is an inch or two shorter than your preference, or they live 5 miles further than you prefer, or whatever the case might be. Those aren't the things that are going to make or break a relationship. They're not the things that are going to sustain a relationship or make it healthy. I mean, of course, it has to work in different ways, but when we can be flexible around certain things that may not be as important as you think they are, then it also opens up possibility. So with my clients, I challenge people to be in this sweet spot of, being present and engaged and also an observer at the same time, being selective and intentional and also flexible. Being able to kind of move back and forth across those different spectrums will help you to have more success in this process. And it sometimes can take a little time to figure out how to navigate that. And when you get there and you get it, it really will help you along the way. So I believe like that love is out there for everyone, and that there are people, everywhere that we might be able to meet. So I want to take a moment and just talk about how you might meet people in your everyday life. I think that with everybody having cell phones and the world we live in and the pandemic that we've had, everybody's more isolated. People are always on their phones. We don't look up. We don't make conversation. We don't make eye contact when we're out and about. And it is possible to meet people in the grocery store or at an event or when you're out for a walk or at the gym. There are single people everywhere who are eager to meet somebody new, just like you are. And when we're out and about in the world, I encourage people to put their phones down, to make eye contact, to strike up conversation. I mean, you need to be safe, obviously, and you just never know where you might meet somebody. I'll give you an example. After my divorce, I was coming back from a trip and I was at the airport. It was like, I think it was a red eye. I guess it was 7 a.m, not my best time. I'm not a morning person. And the luggage, the bags were taking a really long time to come up from the airplane to the carousel. Like ended up taking like a half an hour. So we're all just standing there waiting for our bags. And there was a guy standing near me, and I don't remember who initiated it, but we ended up starting to talk and continued a conversation for the 20, 30 minutes that it took for the bags to come up. And it was a lovely conversation. And after the bags came up, we said goodbye, and he handed me his business card, said he'd enjoyed the conversation. If I ever wanted to get together, please give him a call. So I did. We went out for a few dates. He wasn't quite the right person for me long term, but he was a lovely man, very nice guy. And it never would have happened if I hadn't been open to having a conversation with a stranger in the airport. Now, I did my own assessment, to make sure that he was a good quality person and that I could be safe with him. But it is just an example of being open. We don't typically expect that we're going to meet somebody at the carousel in an airport. And when we're open to possibility and we, put our phones down and are willing to have a conversation, you just never know who you might meet. So I encourage all of you to look for those opportunities in your everyday life where you might be able to connect with somebody because you just don't know where those conversations could go. In line with that, I talked earlier about creating that full joyful life for yourself. And so to that end, I also really encourage people to get out in the world and do the things that you enjoy. Maybe you have some hobbies post-divorce. Maybe there are some, new hobbies that you want to develop or get back to if you haven't done them for a while. There are also a lot of groups that are doing social things. They're not necessarily single and dating focused even. Meetup.com, for example, was developed actually to create community. And there are tons and tons, thousands of meetup groups that are focused around, shared interests or activities. So I really encourage people to just get out and do the things that you enjoy, whether it's a hobby of sorts, whether it's, going with a group to go listen to live music and grab a drink after, whatever the case might be. When you do that in the process, you might meet somebody that you're interested in, or I've had clients who made some new friends at these events, which is always lovely. Maybe those friends know somebody who might be a good fit for you. And at the very least, you're doing something you enjoy, which contributes to that full, joyful life that I talked about earlier that is so important in this process. So it's really a win-win across the board in that regard. So I do really encourage people to get out and about in the world, to be a little more open and to do things that are fun and enjoyable, and continue to do that as a regular way of creating that good life for yourself, but also putting yourself in situations where you might connect with somebody that you're interested in and might want to date. So let's talk about online dating. Millions and millions and millions of people are online, and most people these days are meeting their partners online. I'm a huge fan of online dating because I think it's a great avenue to meeting people that you might not otherwise meet in your everyday life. And it is a weird little world, and it is important to understand how to navigate it. I do want to take a moment in terms of online dating and just talk a little bit about the difference between dating websites and dating apps. and the way that I distinguish them. Dating websites are a site like Match.com or OkCupid, for example, and they have their own apps, but you can log on through a URL on your computer. What they offer is a structure that allows people to share a fair amount of information about themselves. Whether they choose to or not is up to them, but it's structured for people to share a lot of information. Why that's important is because of what I spoke about earlier, that everything people present to you is information. And so on a site like Match or OkCupid, for example, you just then have more to use to assess people by. And that can be really helpful. And particularly for people who are brand new to online dating, or those who have not had a good experience with it, those kinds of sites are often where I will recommend that people start. Dating apps are like Bumble or Hinge or Tinder, and they are structured for people to share just a little bit of information. You might be able to share like 3 or 4 sentences, and then, a few demographic kind of bits of information as well. So there's just not a lot of information. You can meet somebody anywhere. But again, for those who are brand new or haven't had a good experience with online dating, I think it's helpful in terms of the learning curve, and for more success to start with a dating site like Match, for example. So I'm going to speak to that first. A site like Match, and everything that I'm sharing applies also to those of you who might use a dating app like Bumble. It's just that you're going to need to kind of condense everything. And I'll speak to that a little bit more later. So, on any dating site, whether it's a site like Match or an app, the primary photo is the very first thing that people see, and people make a decision within a few seconds based on that photo, whether or not to open up and look at the rest of your profile. So you have a few seconds to kind of grab somebody's attention. Now, you don't have to look like a supermodel. And you do want your primary photo to show you, like I'll often say, like you on a really good day, to kind of bring out the best in you. Ideally, the primary photo is a headshot with you smiling, looking into the camera with good lighting and good resolution. Professional photos tend to get more attention, like up to 4 times more attention than personal photos. By professional photos, I don't mean like a business headshot or a LinkedIn photo. I mean like a photo by a professional, but is more of a lifestyle photo that kind of like brings out the best in you, and takes pictures that really reflect your personality, kind of brings that out. But even if you don't do a professional photo, you do want the primary one, as I said, to be a headshot, you smiling, looking in the camera with good lighting and good resolution. It will get more attention when it has those qualities. In terms of the rest of the profile, you ideally want somewhere between, I don't know, 5 to 8 photos. You want a mix of headshots and full length shots, indoor, outdoor, dressy, casual. If you have some particular hobbies, you can have a picture of you engaged in the hobby. If you have a pet, you can have a picture of you with the pet. You don't need 10 pictures of you with the pet. And again, the photos are designed to show what it might be like to date you. So you don't want necessarily just, great, but kind of flat photos of you. You want ones, again, that really reflect more of your personality. In terms of the profile summary on a site like Match, an ideal profile summary is around 200 to 300 words, with 2/3 about you and 1/3 about what you're looking for. That last part is really important, and I find a lot of people leave that out. So I encourage you to make sure that you're speaking to that. The part about you is about your personality, your interests, your values, and what you want to do is make sure that you're showing how you're unique, not just listing about a bunch of adjectives to describe yourself or just listing out a bunch of interests. You really want to find ways to show how you're unique, and in that regard, make sure that your profile is not generic, because again, the profile is designed to attract the people that you want to attract. If your profile is too generic, then it doesn't distinguish between people. And you're not necessarily going to attract those that you want. And it's better, you know, in this case, in terms of dating, like quality over quantity is definitely better. So I'd rather you hear from a few really good people who are potentially a good fit for you than 100 people, none of whom would be a great fit. So it becomes important, as I said, to show how you're unique. And I'll give you a couple examples. Instead of saying, as an example, like I'm adventurous, somebody might say, I just came back from climbing Mount Kilimanjaro and I'm already planning my next expedition. That gives you a really good idea of how adventurous this person is. And if you're reading that and you're somebody for whom, you know, driving into the city from the suburbs is a big deal, then connecting with somebody who likes to go on, you know, these big expeditions, like may not be the best fit for you. And so if they had just said that they're adventurous, like maybe you think you're adventurous too for your own reasons, but it's a really wide gap between what you each see as adventurous. So the more descriptive you can be that shows the ways in which you're unique, the better, because again, it's going to convey more about who you are and it's going to draw in the people for whom that is a better fit and that you might prefer to be with. The other thing I want to say is to also frame whatever you're presenting in your profile as positive, in a positive way. It's okay not to want certain things in somebody, and it's better to reframe it in a positive way. So instead of saying, you know, sometimes you might see in a profile, somebody might say, you know, I don't want any drama, which is usually a red flag for me. Because it makes me think either they just got out of something with drama or they're the drama. But instead of saying that, like you could say, I'm looking for somebody who's done their work and is stable in their lives. You know, if you don't want somebody, you know, who doesn't take care of themselves, you know, you could say, you know, I'm looking for somebody who's active and who values health or something like that. There are almost always ways to reframe something that you don't want into a more positive wording. So, and the reason that's important is because positivity attracts positivity. And so you will get a different response if you frame it that way. Again, all these factors that might go into a profile as I'm describing on Match, except for the length of it, are also going to be important on a profile on a dating app like Bumble or Hinge. It's going to be obviously super condensed, but you still need to find a way to show who you are and how you're unique, to say something about values and to say something about what you're looking for. And again, you want to avoid the generic sentences like, you know, I'm looking for a serious relationship, you know, just sense of humor and intelligent and whatever the different adjectives might be. You want to try to find a way to be more descriptive. When you are assessing other people, you want to look for all those same things that are going to be in your profile. And you also want to look for consistency in their profile when you're assessing them. Is what they say in one part consistent with what they say somewhere else? And if you start communicating with them, is there consistency between how they present in their profile and how they communicate? You also want to pay attention to what resonates for you. You know, if you're reading a profile and let's say you're attracted to the person, but you're reading it and you can't find anything that resonates for you that you can connect with, then chances are it's probably going to be hard to connect with them outside of this. So you want to really pay attention to what's going on for you as you're reading a profile and looking at photos and so forth. You know, what kind of feelings or thoughts is it bringing up for you as well? Ideally, your profile is going to make people curious about you. And when you're reading profiles, it's going to make you curious about them. And if somebody is curious, then the next step would be to send a message. And I encourage everybody to feel comfortable sending out messages and not waiting for people to reach out to them. There is value in being active and intentional in this process. Part of it has to do with algorithms. The more active you are on these dating sites, it does affect the algorithms and who's presented to you and how many new people and so forth. So being active makes a difference, and it's also more empowering, I think, to take initiative and to reach out to somebody and not wait in a more passive way for people to reach out to you. So I do encourage everybody to initiate messages. The messaging is really, really important because it's another avenue for gathering more information about someone. And I encourage you to think about the messaging online as a conversation and not just like texting and shorthand and just checking boxes. Think of it as a conversation, just like if you met somebody, at a party or in a club, you're going to have a conversation. It is not dissimilar. And ideally, well, let me tell you, like an ideal kind of first message will show that you've read their profile, that you have something in common. It will ask a question, because questions are how we get conversations started and keep them going. And it's also positive and shows confidence. So like a template of sorts for a first message might be like, hey, Bob, great profile like you. I also like to play tennis and travel. You mentioned you just came back from Italy. What was your favorite thing to do there? I look forward to hearing back from you, Susan. Checks all those boxes that I just mentioned, right? So that's what you want to be sending out, that kind of a message in your voice, of course. And it's also what you want to look for when you're getting messages. Again, you want to then pay attention if the messages start going back and forth to how they communicate. Do they answer your questions? Do they ignore them? Do they answer them in full sentences, or do they give you one-word answers? Do they ask you questions? How much effort are they making? Are you feeling like you're doing all the work to keep it going? Because if you are, that's not a good sign. There's so much information you can get from the messaging. You want to ask open-ended questions because then you have the potential to get more information. And you want to kind of balance like some lightness with some increasing depth if the conversation continues. So for example, you might ask somebody who's, grew up in the Midwest and now lives, in Massachusetts or New Hampshire, like what brought you to this area, or what made you decide to become blank, whatever profession they are. Really more open-ended questions, and then just pay attention to how they respond. Because again, it's going to give you a lot of information if you're paying attention. You want to try to avoid conversations about the weather, about how's your day, how's your weekend, how's work, just those like kind of blanket questions that people tend to engage in, because those conversations are going to fall flat. They're going to fizzle out. Nobody knows where to go with them. It's not going to get you anywhere. Ideally, if you have a good connection with someone, you want to feel like there's some energy to the conversation, some momentum. You want to have what I call a flurry of messages that go back and forth over the course of a few days or a week. We're not talking about becoming pen pals, but you do want to take the time to gather some information via the messaging. If somebody and if there's a good connection, I will say, then the next step would be to suggest maybe having a phone call. And the phone call I like to suggest before you meet in person, because it just gives you like one extra layer of ensuring that how they're presenting online is consistent with what they sound like and how they present kind of in a kind of real life situation, which is on the phone. So I do think it's helpful to do that, and just a brief conversation is fine. And if that goes well, then you can consider meeting in person. A lot of people are quick to suggest to meet in person these days. I encourage people to take a little bit of time to communicate online first. And the reason is that meeting in person is a greater investment of time, energy, and emotion. And if you meet someone without having a lot of information, without knowing that they're a decent person and that there's some potential fit, then it's kind of a crapshoot. You don't know what you're going to get. And they might not show, they might show up drunk, they might behave badly. You know, if you end up disappointed over and over meeting people, then you're going to start to feel disheartened, you're going to feel disappointed, you're going to feel frustrated. And that then becomes a lens through which you re-engage in the process. And if you're in that negative frame, as I talked about earlier, it's going to impact the experience that you have. So I think that there is value in communicating and gathering more of that information before you meet. So at the very least, before you meet somebody, you can answer those questions. Are they a decent person? And are there some things that we have in common, you know, that make us potentially a good fit? Because then even if you go on a first date and you or they decide like it's not going to progress to a second date, you've just spent an hour or two at most with a decent person. So even if it doesn't progress, you're still going to come away feeling relatively okay because they're a good person. It's going to feel very different than if they don't show up or show up drunk or behave badly because you hadn't vetted them in any way beforehand. So there's a lot of value in doing that. If people suggest meeting quickly and you don't feel ready, you can say, I'm enjoying the conversation we're having here for now. You could say something like, you know, I'd look forward to meeting at some point. For now, I'm enjoying the conversation here. And then just continue the conversation. If somebody's a good person, they want you to be comfortable and they're going to just keep going and go along with you in continuing the conversation. They're not going to give you a hard time. They're not going to push you to do something that makes you uncomfortable. And if they do, that's a red flag. So it's perfectly okay to ask someone to kind of slow down. If you hear from people that you have zero interest in, you know, if they're just sending a message that says, hey, what's up? Hi, beautiful, you know, don't really say anything, you can just ignore those messages. Those folks are just sending out those kind of messages to hundreds of people to see what sticks, but chances are they probably haven't read your profile. If somebody though takes the time to send you a thoughtful message and you're not interested, I do encourage people to just send a short message back just to say, thanks for your message. I don't think we're the right match and I wish you well in this process. People actually really appreciate that, even though you're turning them down, you're rejecting them. It is kind and respectful, which I think the dating world needs more of. And so I do think that kind of message goes a long way if somebody has, again, sent you a really thoughtful message. You can also convey that message if you've had a date with a nice person, but you're not interested and they follow up. You can share that same kind of message. You know, it was a lovely evening. I don't think we're quite the right fit for each other, and best wishes to you. It's much nicer than ghosting, which is when people just disappear on you and you never know what happens. And then you're in your head trying to figure out, you know, where it went wrong. And it doesn't feel good when you're on the receiving end of that. So I do encourage people to be more direct in that way. Let's talk about just an ideal first date really quickly. We have a few more minutes. I don't think there are any questions in the Q&A yet, but an ideal first date is no more than an hour or two at most. I tend to recommend evening dates. I think they lend themselves more to an air of romance, which is what this is ultimately all about. I'm not a fan of those, you know, Starbucks dates where you just meet for 20 to 30 minutes. And I think both people are usually just coming in with their checklist. I just don't think those translate as well. An ideal first date might be a drink and an appetizer or coffee and dessert, something like that. And again, keeping it short and sweet. You know, just to see if there is more of a connection. And I actually encourage people, and especially I will say women, sometimes we can get into our heads and get ahead of ourselves a little too much, especially in this process. I tell people the only question you want to have going into a first date is whether or not you might want a second date. And then on the second date, whether or not you want a third date. And actually, you can use that step-by-step kind of question throughout the process. You know, if you meet someone in your everyday life or you're connecting with them online, like, do I like them enough to want to continue the conversation? Do I like them enough to want to meet them? Did I like them enough on the date to want to see them again, and so forth? And it's just a way to keep you more present, to keep you from getting too far ahead, and it will help you to be more successful again in the process. So with just a couple minutes left, I'm going to stop. I've covered a lot of things, you know, again, things to help set you up for success, or being open to possibility, taking time to do your work, reconnecting with who you are and what you want, paying attention to mindset, being selective and flexible. And I often say, you never know. Sometimes people show up in unexpected ways, and that can be part of the fun. And again, when you're open to possibility, and you're in a positive mindset, then I think amazing things can happen. And it's certainly true when it comes to dating and relationships after divorce. So I'm going to stop there and see if anybody has any questions, either from the audience or from the other professionals here.
Thank you, Susan. That was awesome. I don't see any questions in the Q&A, but please do put them in there if you do have questions for Susan. I took notes. I have some single friends, so I took notes
Oh,
for
good.
them.
Awesome. That's great.
Been a little bit since I've been in the dating world, but some of the scars are still there.
Well, I'm here to help people avoid having scars from dating, and just, you know, have fun, have positive experiences, and find whatever it is that they're looking for. And I will say, I work with people in their 20s, and I've had clients up into their upper 80s that I've helped with dating. And so it is possible at any age to have a good experience and to find what you're looking for. And again, it really is about mindset and about understanding how to approach it, how to navigate it. So
yeah, that was one of my notes, mindset.
yeah,
That's super important. You have to be in the right frame of mind for it, and not just do it because you're ready to do it, right?
right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The other thing I wrote down that struck me when you were talking about, things that you have your list of wants and don't wants, and just, it may not be exactly what you thought you wanted.
Right.
And you talked about, meeting somebody at the airport. You never know where that's going to happen, right?
Exactly.
Or being open to it.
What it's going to look like. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah, and I'm happy. I offer a complimentary consultation. So if anybody wants to connect, they can, message me. And if anybody is already online and is here tonight, I'm also happy to do a quick review of your profile, and you can reach out to me, and we can set that up complimentary. Just give you some quick feedback about it.
Awesome. Thank you. And I know that we are recording this, and so it will be sent out to everybody, and it will have all of our
Awesome.
contact information on there. So thank you very much, Susan. I appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll let everybody get on with their evenings. And Susan, I know you have another engagement tonight, so
yes,
thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to connect with everyone, and I wish everyone well, and am here if anybody wants to follow up. So thank you so much.
Thank
Best
you,
wishes.
Susan.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Renee,
All right.
I wonder if it makes sense to share our next New Beginnings event that's coming up.
Yes, I wrote it down. March 20th
Mm.
is the next one, and that is on gray divorce or silver divorce. So later in life, when the kids maybe are almost grown and out the door. So that will be a good one. We usually get some pretty good attendance for that. Lots of questions around that topic. So we hope you can join us for that one.
And stay tuned we have usually at least one a month. So stay tuned for our different ones coming up. And if you have ideas, please share them with us, because we would love to hear what you would like to hear about from us.
Yes.
Right.
So true. Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a good rest of your night.
Thanks, everyone.